So we talked about subject and locations, and now we're going to talk a little bit more about characters and the cast of your feature film. You're going to want to limit it, like we said, to 2 to 3 characters that you're thinking about. And these are the characters that are going to be the main principal characters throughout your feature film. Now, you might be saying, well, could I have a few more? Does it have to be 2 or 3? How many could you have? How many can you go past? And I would say make the majority of the dialogue, the majority of the action coming from just 2 to 3 people. Now, you could introduce a few other characters that are just there by appearance or just have a couple of lines each. I would say try to cap it at no more than 10 to 12. So you have 2 to 3 main characters that are doing the majority of the action, the majority of the dialogue, and then up to 12 other people that make an appearance at some point with just a handful of lines. Now, when you're writing those scenes, you're also going to want to limit how many people are delivering dialogue within a scene. So you might have those 10 to 12 people that you can introduce throughout the film, but you don't want to have a scene with more than 2 or 3 people delivering dialogue at one time, because then you're going to have to, it's going to take a lot of time to shoot that scene, a lot of different camera angles to set up. It's going to introduce more lighting. It's going to introduce more audio challenges to capture the dialogue of each person that is talking. You're going to have a bigger space for the people to be in. And so you want to limit those scenes to just 2 or 3 people having dialogue at any one time. When you limit the scenes to just 2 to 3 people delivering dialogue or appearing in the scene at one time, here are some of the positive results that you'll experience. There are less people to pay, less people to feed. It takes less time to shoot. There are fewer lights, fewer mics, fewer costumes. All of that goes into savings into your budget and savings into your time. So again, you can focus on capturing the best possible scene that's going to make the best possible movie. With a similar thought, you'll also want to avoid scenes with crowds. It plays out in a similar way as limiting the number of people who have dialogue in a scene. Then you're introducing more time, more mics, more lights, and it requires more crew actually to execute this as well. You have to think about who is scheduling and communicating with all these extras, who is receiving and assisting the extras' arrival and placing them, who's supervising and executing makeup and wardrobe for the extras. And then you're getting into, there has to be more food, there are more fees, and there are more parking problems. So when you have that crowd, all of a sudden it's not just more people, or it's not just about the more equipment, but you have to have more crew and more money. And so it's this exponential effect on your time and your budget. When you're thinking about your cast, you're also going to want to avoid writing a lot of scenes that require a lot of dialogue from kids. What's the saying? You don't want to work with animals or kids or water. And it's so true. I've worked with all 3 multiple times, and though often the result is fun and good, it does take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money to try to navigate all of that. There's some reasons why you're going to want to try to avoid a lot of scenes with dialogue with kids. It does take more time. Understandably, they have unpredictable behavior, more restrictions on their work hours. That can often create some challenges for your scheduling. Something else to consider with your subject and how you're structuring your screenplay are the number of story days. Those are like individual days that take place in the course of the movie. Some movies take place in the course of 24 hours or 48 hours. It's a weekend or a week or something like that. But there are other types of stories that you tell that may require many, many days over the course of the screenplay or over the course of the movie. And those can be tricky because what you're doing is you're introducing more wardrobes for all the actors and things to represent that progression of time. And it can actually cost you a lot of time and money to be able to execute that. We ran into that with our fun, quirky romantic comedy called A Strange Brand of Happy. And the screenwriter had written, I think it was 26 different story days that took place in the course of the 90-minute movie. And we also were shooting a lot of locations. So I think it was 23 or 26 locations in 28 days and 23 story days. And so not only were we introducing all these different locations, but with those story days, you were having to spend a lot of time on wardrobe, a lot of time changing in and out of wardrobe, the money that it took for the wardrobe, and then for the costume department. All of that took a lot of time and effort. All of a sudden, then you introduce the need for a separate U-Haul for costuming. And even though the screenplay focused on just 3 characters for the majority of it, because there were so many story days, then we introduced more time and more money that was required in the budget for wardrobe. So avoid those story days. Put that in your parameters of trying to avoid the number of days that you illustrate in the story. Try to keep that to 10 or less as well. So there's some great examples of feature films that are out there for you to reference for inspiration that have a small cast like what we're talking about. There's 127 Hours. That's basically one person. Take Shelter, Newlyweds, the Ed Burns movie, and Once, featuring mostly 2 people for the majority of the movie.